Get ready, because we're stepping back in time today. Back to 1975.
Oh, wow. Okay.
To a neighborhood. I mean, picture this. Picture a neighborhood so perfect. You know, like it's straight out of a storybook.
Okay, yeah.
We're talking like manicured lawns, big, beautiful homes, and just like an air of like untouchable privilege. Like you can't touch this place.
Got it.
This is Belle Haven,
Okay.
an affluent enclave in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Okay.
Now picture a crisp, like a crisp autumn evening.
Yeah.
The leaves are turning those beautiful shades of red and gold.
I can see it.
It's mischief night.
Oh, okay.
The eve of Halloween.
Yeah.
And the air is like buzzing with anticipation. Kids are out and about, pulling like harmless pranks and enjoying the thrill of the night.
Yeah.
But for 15-year-old Martha Moxley, this night of innocent fun would take a tragic and just unthinkable turn.
Oh.
It's almost a cruel irony, right?
Yeah, it is.
A night meant for laughter and lighthearted mischief becomes a night of just like unimaginable darkness.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The next morning, that illusion of safety in Belle Haven, it's shattered.
Okay.
Martha's lifeless body is discovered on her family's property. She's been brutally attacked.
No.
Bludgeoned and stabbed with a golf club.
Oh my gosh.
And here's where the story takes an even more chilling twist.
Okay.
That golf club
is
traced back to the Skakel family.
Yeah.
Martha's neighbors.
So the murder weapon
Yeah.
is linked to a prominent family living right next door.
Yeah.
It immediately throws suspicion onto the Skakels, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's like something out of a true crime novel, where the truth is often closer than you think.
It is. Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twist and Crime series.
Oh, okay.
And speaking of the Skakels, let's talk about Tommy and Michael Skakel.
Okay.
The two brothers who become central figures in this tragic saga.
Okay.
Now, these weren't just any teenagers.
Right.
They were the nephews of Ethel Skakel Kennedy.
Wow.
Widow of Senator Robert F. Kennedy. We're talking wealth, privilege,
Oh, wow.
and a direct connection to one of America's most influential families.
That Kennedy connection adds another layer of complexity to this already unsettling story.
Absolutely.
Imagine the pressure,
Oh, yeah.
the scrutiny, the whispers
Oh, my God.
that inevitably swirls around a case involving such a high-profile family.
It's hard to fathom the kind of weight that comes with a name like Kennedy.
Yeah.
But before we get lost in the tangled web of family ties and social standing,
Right.
let's take a moment to remember Martha.
Okay.
She wasn't just a victim.
Yeah.
She was a daughter, a friend, a classmate,
Of course.
a young woman with dreams and a whole life ahead of her.
It's so important to remember the human element at the heart of these cases.
Yes.
Martha was more than just a name in a police report.
Right.
She was a vibrant individual,
Yeah.
full of life and potential. She loved music,
Yeah.
especially Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, wow.
And friends remember her infectious laugh. Just try to picture her. A bubbly teenager,
Yeah.
full of life, suddenly gone.
It's heartbreaking. It makes you wonder, who could commit such a horrific act against someone like Martha?
That's the question that haunted investigators for years.
Now, back to that fateful mischief night.
Yeah.
We know that Tommy, the older Skakel brother, was the last person seen with Martha.
Okay.
They were, flirting, hanging out.
Right, like typical teenagers.
Yeah, typical teenage stuff. But his alibi was shaky, full of inconsistencies.
Oh.
Did he have something to hide? Was he protecting someone?
The inconsistencies in Tommy's story definitely raised red flags for investigators.
Yeah.
He claimed they parted ways around 9:30 p.m.,
Uh-uh.
but the timeline just didn't add up. Some witnesses placed them together later in the evening.
Oh, really?
The pieces weren't fitting together.
And then there's Michael, the younger brother. Initially, he was kind of dismissed as a suspect.
Right.
He was younger, seemingly less of a threat. But then he admits to doing something really strange that night, watching Martha from a tree outside her window.
What?
Why would he hide that? What was going through his mind?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Michael's behavior that night was undeniably peculiar. Watching Martha from a tree, I mean, at best, that's awkward teenage infatuation.
Right.
But his attempts to conceal it,
Yeah.
they add a layer of suspicion. Was it simply an embarrassing crush, or was there something darker at play?
It's a detail that just sticks with you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to shake the image of this young man hiding in the shadows, and he's watching this girl who would soon become a victim. It just raises so many questions.
It does, and this is where the early investigation seems to, really stumble. Think about it. A brutal murder in a wealthy, high-profile community, like Belle Haven.
Right.
You would expect, a swift resolution.
You would think.
But the crime scene wasn't properly secured.
Oh, wow.
Physical evidence, it was scarce.
Mm.
And whispers of the Skakel family's influence hindering the investigation started to circulate.
How could a case like this, with so much at stake, go cold for so long?
It's a question that has just plagued this case for decades.
Yeah.
Sometimes these high-profile investigations with all their, complexities and pressures, they become more about optics than about uncovering the truth.
Yeah.
Evidence gets mishandled, witnesses are overlooked, and crucial details, they just slip through the cracks.
And in the meantime, Martha's family and friends are left grappling with their grief with no answers, no closure.
Right.
Years turn into decades, and that hope of justice, it starts to fade.
Yeah.
But then, in the 1990s, something remarkable happens.
Okay.
It's like a sudden burst of light, piercing through years of darkness.
Wow, okay.
Former classmates of Michael Skakel come forward with bombshell allegations. They claim that he confessed to the murder.
What?
Even boasted about his Kennedy connection shielding him from consequences.
Oh, my God.
These weren't just vague rumors.
Right.
These were detailed accounts from people who knew Michael personally.
Wow.
They painted a chilling picture of a young man, tormented by guilt, unable to keep his dark secret buried any longer.
These testimonies, they just breathed new life into the investigation. Remember, there was still very little physical evidence tying anyone to the crime. These first-hand accounts of Michael's alleged confessions, they were a game changer.
Yeah.
They provided a glimpse into his psyche, his potential motives, and let's not forget the detail about him bragging about his family's influence.
It's a detail that's hard to ignore. It speaks to a sense of entitlement, a belief that wealth and connections could somehow erase a horrific act.
It certainly adds a layer of moral complexity to the story.
Right.
Think about it. How would you feel if a powerful family lived next door and was suspected of a crime? Would you worry about justice being served?
Oh, gosh. It's a chilling thought. And as investigators delve deeper into Michael's past, another piece of the puzzle emerges. The Skakel family had hired a private investigator way back in the 70s to look into the case.
Okay.
And his findings, which had been kept secret for years, they were finally revealed.
And those findings?
Oh, they were damning.
Oh, wow.
The private investigator uncovered inconsistencies in Michael's alibi, further fueling suspicions about his involvement.
So it's like the truth, buried for so long, was finally starting to surface.
So after years of dead ends and false leads, the investigation had finally gained momentum. And in 2002, more than 25 years after Martha's murder, Michael Skakel is finally put on trial. Can you set the scene for it?
Okay. Imagine a packed courtroom, the air thick with anticipation. Years of just pent-up emotions, questions, speculation had finally reached a boiling point. The prosecution, they built their case around the idea that Michael, fueled by jealousy over Tommy's relationship with Martha, killed her in a fit of rage. Their star witnesses were those former classmates who bravely shared their stories, recounting those chilling confessions.
It must have been incredibly difficult for those classmates to come forward after all those years.
Yeah.
What kind of impact do you think their testimonies had on the jury?
Well, their accounts were just incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
They humanized Martha, reminding everyone in that courtroom that she was more than just a victim. She was a friend, a classmate,
Right.
someone they cared about. And their descriptions of Michael's alleged confessions, they painted this vivid, disturbing picture of guilt.
So the prosecution was relying heavily on these eyewitness accounts to convince the jury of Michael's guilt.
Right.
What about the defense? What was their strategy?
The defense team, they focused on attacking the credibility of the prosecution's case.
Okay.
They emphasized the lack of physical evidence directly linking Michael to the crime scene. No fingerprints, no DNA,
Right.
no smoking gun. They argued that the entire case was built on hearsay,
Right.
on circumstantial evidence, which wasn't strong enough to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
So it was a classic legal battle with both sides presenting compelling arguments.
It was.
And in the end, the jury had to decide. Did those witness testimonies, those glimpses into Michael's psyche, outweigh the lack of concrete physical evidence?
It was a decision that weighed heavily on the jurors, I'm sure. Yeah.
They had to grapple with conflicting accounts, emotional testimonies, and the shadow of the Kennedy name looming over the entire proceedings.
And what was their verdict? After all those years of waiting, did Martha's family finally get the justice they had been seeking?
In a moment that gripped the nation, the jury found Michael Skakel guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison.
Wow. For Martha's family, it must have felt like a weight lifted.
It must have.
A sense of relief after decades of uncertainty.
It was a bittersweet victory, I'm sure.
Yeah.
While the verdict brought a sense of closure, it couldn't bring Martha back.
But as we know with this case, nothing is ever straightforward. The story doesn't end there, does it?
Not by a long shot. The Skakel case is a labyrinth of legal twists and turns, and the verdict was just the beginning of a long and arduous appeals process.
Oh, boy.
Michael's lawyers, they were determined to fight for his freedom, and that battle for justice, it was far from over. So the jury had spoken, but Michael Skakel's legal team wasn't giving up. They launched a series of appeals, and as we know, the Skakel name carries a certain weight. Do you think there's any truth to the rumors that their influence played a role in the appeals process?
Well, it's certainly a question that has been raised time and time again. The Skakel family, they had the resources to hire top-notch legal representation. And those lawyers, they were relentless in their pursuit of overturning the conviction.
Yeah.
Whether their wealth and connections directly influenced the judges, I mean, it's a matter of speculation, but it's undeniable that they had advantages that most defendants simply don't.
And those advantages seemed to pay off, didn't they?
They did.
Because in 2013, after more than a decade behind bars, Michael Skakel's conviction was overturned.
Yes, a judge ruled that Michael had received ineffective counsel during his original trial. His attorney had failed to adequately investigate certain leads and present a strong enough defense, and this ultimately prejudiced the outcome of the trial.
So they were basically saying that if Michael had a better lawyer back then, he might never have been found guilty in the first place.
That's the argument they made.
Oh.
And the judge agreed. It was a controversial decision, to say the least.
Could you imagine what that must have been like for Martha's family?
Oh, gosh.
After finally getting, a sense of justice, having Michael behind bars for her murder, only to have that, ripped away, years later.
That must have been devastating.
Yeah.
The legal system can be a cruel mistress sometimes, offering hope and then snatching it away just as quickly.
But the story takes another turn, doesn't it? Because the state of Connecticut wasn't about to let Michael walk free without a fight.
They weren't.
They appealed the decision to overturn the conviction, and in 2016, the Connecticut Supreme Court actually reinstated Michael's guilty verdict.
Yes. It was a stunning reversal of fortune.
Whoa.
The case, which seemed to have reached its conclusion, was suddenly thrust back into the spotlight.
It's almost like a legal ping pong match,
It is.
Back and forth, back and forth. It's enough to make your head spin.
The Skakel case is a testament to just, the complexities of our legal system. What seems like a clear-cut decision one day can be overturned the next.
So was Michael sent back to prison at that point?
Well, the legal battle continued. Michael's lawyers, they appealed the reinstatement of his conviction.
Right.
And the case bounced back and forth between courts for a few more years.
This is where it gets really confusing, right? All these appeals, all this legal jargon, it's hard to keep track.
It certainly highlights the challenges of navigating the legal system, especially for those without the resources to hire a team of expert lawyers.
And how did it all end? After all these twists and turns, where did Michael Skakel finally land?
In a final decisive ruling in 2018, the Connecticut Supreme Court, they reversed its previous decision and once again vacated Michael's conviction. This time for good. The case, it came to a standstill, officially unsolved.
So after being found guilty by a jury, spending years behind bars, and then fighting for his freedom in a seemingly endless series of appeals, Michael Skakel ultimately walked free.
He did. And that's what makes this case so fascinating and so frustrating.
Yeah.
We're left with so many unanswered questions. Was justice truly served for Martha Moxley?
Right.
Did Michael Skakel get away with murder?
It's almost like the legal system, for all its intricacies and procedures, couldn't quite untangle this web of wealth, privilege, and conflicting accounts.
The Skakel case serves as a reminder that the pursuit of justice is rarely simple or straightforward.
Right.
There are often more questions than answers, and sometimes even after years of investigation and legal battles, the truth, it remains elusive.
It's a sobering thought. And it makes you wonder about all those other cases out there.
It does.
Those unsolved mysteries that continue to haunt families and communities.
Yes. For every high-profile case that captures the nation's attention, there are countless others that go unsolved, leaving behind just a trail of grief and unanswered questions.
This deep dive has been a whirlwind of emotions and information.
He has.
We've journeyed through decades.
He has.
From those idyllic streets of Belle Haven on a seemingly innocent mischief night to the harsh realities of the courtroom.
We've explored the complexities of wealth and privilege,
Right.
the fragility of memory, and the relentless pursuit of justice, even when the path is long and winding.
And through it all, the one constant has been Martha Moxley, the young woman whose life was tragically cut short.
It's important that we remember her, not just as a victim, but as a vibrant individual who deserved a chance to live her life.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are captivated by true crime and the intricate workings of the justice system, be sure to follow CrimePod Castle for more captivating stories.
We delve into the dark side of human nature, exploring the motives, the psychology, and the often unforeseen consequences of criminal acts.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. We're also on YouTube, where you'll find even more in-depth content, including interviews, documentaries, and behind-the-scenes insights.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Skakel case, a story that continues to fascinate and frustrate in equal measure.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and as always, be careful out there.